Welcome, everybody, to the Social Dig, the greatest underrated show on the World Wide Web. I am your host, Mr. Rob G. And as always, we're going to be digging into the topics to keep you talking and the talk that keeps you thinking. So come on in, kick your feet up, get an ice cold beverage, get ready to join the conversation. Welcome back to the Social Dig. So glad to be here today on this Juneteenth, June 19th. 2024. We're going to go back and we're going to talk about what Juneteenth means. When did it start? What is it? It's a national holiday at this point. I hope you're aware of that. If not, we're going to make sure that you're totally informed on this today. You're here at Social Dig, so you know how we run this program. Let me go ahead and just jump in and see who has joined us here early today. Let's see, we got to turn to the Eternal stepping in, saying hi, Rob G. We got Bim Jim saying 2 new videos on my channel, Portals and Aliens. All right, Bim Jim, we would make sure that we're checking you out. Simon the Likeable and Miss Mama Captain Jones definitely in the house tonight. Yeah, we're going to do things a little bit different, right? It's usually UFOs, it's usually paranormal, usually something to do with the phenomena. We're still going to have a little bit of that because we're going to run the news like we always do. There's a couple news stories that it actually pertains to. But right after that, we're going to get right into the conversation on Juneteenth. And I have Reverend Michael Carter joining us today to have that discussion with me. He's just going to let us know how he feels about Juneteenth and what it means to him. And I hope it resonates because I'll say this. It's a national American holiday, right? Same as 4th of July, same as Memorial Day, Veterans Day, Flag Day, President's Day. Any of these holidays that are American that you could think of, Juneteenth is also that. So while you're sitting at home today and wondering why you got the day off or why this, what's really the meaning behind Juneteenth, you've heard the word, but you're not sure where this goes, right? We're going to make sure that we go ahead and get into that. So everybody out there, anybody out there watching, I definitely appreciate you coming on in. Kurt M., thanks for joining us tonight on a very important day. It's going to be an important conversation. So I want to make sure that, all my open-minded people here at the Social Dig, which I know all of you are, will be able to handle a conversation like this and others, because we have the tough conversations here on the Social Dig, right? It's the topics that keep you talking, right? And the talk that keeps you thinking. That's what it's all about, moving the needle, education. That's what we're going to do here. So once again, thank you so much for coming on here to the Social Dig. We're going to go ahead and jump right on into it with the news here. Our disclosure news. I have a couple stories that I did want to go ahead and bring up here. So kick back. Week in disclosure news, right? And actually, there's a couple things that we need to let you know. Any time of the day, you can call this number here, 856-843-3444, or that's 856-THE-DIGG. This is the call-in message line for the Social Dig. So if you have anything on your mind, any messages you want to leave in response to any of the topics that we've covered, especially today with Juneteenth, if you have anything you want to add post-show, you can definitely do that. That's the number. Put it in your phone because you never know when you're going to need it. You can call and just say hi. Sometimes that's a cool thing to do. You can just call, say hi, Mr. Rob G, X, Y, and Z, and keep it moving. And I do appreciate if you would do that. But getting into the show, we're going to jump into the first news story here. So as you may have heard, and we haven't done one of these Social Dig shows in a while, so we haven't had to cover the news. But lately they had the Dyson Sphere discovered. So I'm going to go ahead and read a news article for you on this. And just so you can get an idea what a Dyson sphere is, there's theories are we've had theories that you at some point in time may be able to create a superstructure around your home star to kind of harness the energy. And so they believe that they have located something potentially matching that somewhere out in the solar system, which would indicate life in another solar system. So I thought that was pretty interesting. I'm going to go ahead and get into that story here. So here we go. So this is actually courtesy of News Nation. So what are Dyson spheres? Researchers have identified at least 7 stars that might be surrounded by advanced megastructures known as Dyson spheres. The theory is that potential superior intelligent life might be creating buildings or devices to harness the energy around their home stars or planet, creating so called alien megastructures. The newly released study by the Royal Astronomical Society specifically looks at the theory around Dyson spheres. It found at least 7 stars might be surrounded by these alleged alien structures. The group of researchers looked at infrared heat near stars located within 1,000 light years from Earth, a type of heat that can't otherwise be explained. It all stems from a 1960s theory by physicist Freeman Dyson, who believed that if these structures existed, scientists on Earth might be able to pick up on the infrared waves. Could the Dyson sphere be aliens? Jenna Levin, a professor of astronomy and physics at Barnard College and Columbia University, cast doubt on the possible alien origins of what these researchers are observing. Quote, I would say I'm very open minded. I'm not losing sleep over the idea that we are observing an alien megastructure. I don't think that's what's happening in these scenarios. But we are in a new era in terms of our understanding of how prevalent planets are and how planets are absolutely prolific in the universe, Levin told News Nation. That really suggests that life is prolific. The question is whether or not life can easily reach the phase of industrialization and building things and exploring space. That's a much, much harder bar to get over, she added. The studies team used 2 active telescopes in space to conduct their research, but there is no conclusive evidence quite yet to determine what exactly is happening around these stars. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of say a couple things about that. I just had a couple questions about that, and actually, I want to actually bring the Reverend Michael Carter in as well to kind of maybe discuss this part of it. And let me go ahead and bring him up on stage. Hello, Reverend. How are you today?
Hey, brother. Good evening,
All
and
right.
thanks for having me on.
No problem. I'm
Been a
so glad
while.
that you were able to join us today.
Yeah, I'll
Um,
always make the time, brother. I'll try to make the time.
Thank you so much. I was reading the story here, covering the story on the Dyson
Yeah,
spheres discovered. What were your thoughts on that? Do you think there's something there, or how do you feel about that?
I think there's always something there. I think this again is part of spoon feeding us to get us used to what may happen, what's going to come down the line. If you remember, this conversation has been going on for several years now. Remember around the face on Mars, right? It looks like an Egyptian pharaoh, and so this is what this reminded me of. And you had the back and forth that oh no, it's a natural. This is a natural figure here. This is not intelligently made, and so we're still having that conversation. No one's uh, going to come out and put their career on the line and say, "No, I guarantee you, this is it." But I see this as just another way, as you said. Let's keep the conversation going. Let's keep the questions going. It's a way of getting people used to the 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 news that we are not alone, and we're talking about it, that these may be megastructures, and so I think that's part of the effect of this. Right now, I think anything is possible. I think that just that we're having this conversation now, and that before, people were, oh, that's definitely not it. NASA was saying, no, these are not megastructures. That's not what you see there on the moon. So what a difference 10 years, 15, 20 years makes. So I think it's a good, healthy sign that we're even, debating it publicly.
Awesome answer, definitely. And I'll tell you what, the I just had written something down about that, and it seems like if they were trying to bring a soft disclosure, then they would bring something out like this, because this was theorized back in the 60s. And so magically, something that we theorized, we find out there in space, when maybe the whole thing was maybe they have already known that these things were out there. And so it's kind of reverse, right? It's like reverse psychology. It's like
Yeah.
they knew they were there, and then now they're acting like they just discovered them, which I kind of think that's more likely of what's happening. What is the likelihood that we would theorize a Dyson sphere to harness the sun's energy, and then we find it out there in
Yeah.
use?
Yeah.
That's bananas.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. It's almost like when things happen, you see a pattern. A lot of times, I was thinking of when 9/11, I was in New York at 9/11, and I was still living there. But I just noticed a lot of times, a lot of government news, whether it's UFO related or not, they'll do it on a Friday, and and it'll be late, and so you got that whole weekend to kind of digest it. Uh, they have to do the same thing. When we looked at the Tic Tac um, video that came out a few years ago, and then we had some more Tic Tac videos like a year or two later, and it's almost like it's a trial balloon to see how we're going to react to it. And if there's no panic, then okay, maybe in several more months we'll throw something else out there. That's the way it seems to me, that when we're asleep, people are thinking, and they're thinking about how they can do whatever it is they need to do. And I don't mean these shadowy figures, but we do know there's a government within the government. That's why Congress is fighting about with David Grush and all these other folks, because one part of the government has information and they're not sharing it with another part of the government. That's a shadow kind of government. And so here we have, just a little bit at a time. Let's see how the public will react to this. That's if they even read it. And so there's a method to this. There's a formula to this if you're astute enough. And so it's just good. I'm just glad for this little bit of transparency.
Definitely. And kind of segueing from that, because to someone who didn't know about a Dyson sphere and they hear this news, is probably shocking. But this next story kind of even goes a little bit further with that. So this one is Harvard says aliens are here. So I'm going to go ahead and read this story, and then we'll talk about it real quick here. So with this is courtesy of KTLA 5, Los Angeles. Harvard researchers suggest aliens may live among us underground or on the moon. A recent legitimization of reports of unidentified anomalous phenomena, commonly called UAPs and formerly referred to as UFOs, has brought more eyeballs to the possibility of extraterrestrial life. While a long-awaited government report issued earlier this year found, quote, no evidence of aliens or extraterrestrial intelligence, as reported by the Associated Press, two professors from Harvard University and a colleague at Montana Technological University suggested humanity may just be looking in the wrong places. Instead, reality could be something similar to science fiction movies like 1988's They Live, in which special glasses allowed a man to see the aliens who disguise themselves as humans and live in plain sight. Quote, UAP may reflect activities of intelligent beings concealed in stealth here on Earth, e.g. underground, and or its near environs, the moon, and or even walking among us, passing as humans, wrote Tim Lomas and Brendan Case of Harvard's Human Flourishing Program and Biological Anthropology professor Michael P. Masters of MTU in a report this month. Although this idea is likely to be regarded skeptically by most scientists, such are the nature of some UAP, that we argue this possibility should not be summarily dismissed and instead deserves genuine consideration in a spirit of ep- epistemic humility and openness. Their writing makes a case for scientific openness to a concealed earthly explanation for UAPs, argues that too often scientists and others try to put UAPs into two categories: human-made technology and extraterrestrial explanation, something akin to ancient alien civilizations elsewhere in the universe. While those explanations are probably more likely to be true than a lunar alien civilization, the researchers said, but that's no reason to discount it entirely. Such theories are far fetched on their face. We entertain them here because some of the aspects of UAP are strange enough that they seem to call for unconventional explanations, they said. What do you think about that story?
Well, I think a couple of things. You remember John Mack, the late John Mack. Again, what a difference 20 years makes. What a difference a couple of decades may. I mean, he pioneered this. He was coming from Harvard, and they really took him through it. Okay, they tried to take his tenure and everything, but Brother Mac didn't live long enough to see this. These people who are putting this out there, believe me, Harvard has given them permission to say it.
Right.
Okay, they could not just come out here without someone giving them an okay to do that. Now, you and I and other people in the UFO community, I know that's a nebulous term, people who are experiencers, people who are researchers, we've heard stories like this. We know that these beings are probably walking among us. We know that. But to the average person, this is news. And when they put Harvard there, it kind of legitimizes it a bit. But again, one of America's premier institutions is, and it's been some, what's his name? Loeb, Ali
Avi
Loeb.
Loeb, yeah.
Okay, he's at Harvard. So here you have our premier educational institutions entertaining and having conversations about us living in a populated universe. That is by design. Harvard gives legitimacy to it, just the name. And so it's being taken seriously. But I don't want us to forget that Dr. John Mack was the pioneer. And if it wasn't John Mack, they wouldn't be able to do and say what they're saying now. So again, soft disclosure, you're still going to have your skeptics, but now you have Harvard in the conversation. It's impressive, makes you raise an eyebrow. Again, we're going to get more and more information now. Going forward, there are more TV shows out. This is a shameless plug. I'm not on tonight's episode, but there's a new show on Discovery Channel tonight at 10 o'clock called Alien Encounters, Fact or Fiction. I shot an episode. I don't think it's on tonight, but it's a new series. I hear Spielberg's got another film or documentary coming out. There are people, Netflix is looking for subject matter like this. So this is the new normal. And so just buckle up and see where this ride will take us.
Yeah. It does feel different. It definitely feels different that they would, with credibility, with the stamp like Harvard. And you, if you looked at these two stories that I just covered, you would think that the wave is moving towards disclosure. Like, oh my gosh, we're making progress to getting there. Now, this guy. Now, I'm about to get in. This is the final story that we have for the news, but this actually was done on News Nation, which kind of took me by surprise. there's a guy on here. He's from UFO Seekers, which I actually used to watch this guy back in the day. And for some reason, I don't know, he's feels like he's turned a skeptical turn here. But I'm gonna play a video here in courtesy News Nation. It's only 2 minutes. Don't try to flag me for this, but definitely want to provide commentary, fair use, all that kind of stuff here. So let's take a look at it here.
Now is UFO Seekers lead investigator Tim Doyle. Tim, thanks so much for coming on. So, they're going to be talking about a lot of different issues. You think UFOs, extraterrestrials is going to be a question that's asked?
I definitely think that UFOs and UAP will be a question asked. I don't know specifically alien. Unfortunately, there isn't any scientific evidence of aliens having visited Earth, although that's what I spend my life and passion searching for, because there are so many people who believe they have seen something in the sky or encountered aliens. I've met a woman who swore she gave birth to an alien baby. So I think because of there's two separate issues going on, the UAP and the alien question. Right. Of course, there's so much out there in the universe. Aliens exist somewhere. But as far as aliens visiting Earth is a separate question. Of course, the UAP is a real issue and something is infiltrating American airspace. I myself have captured a spherical ball flying in the Sierra Nevada mountains of California. I've seen a balloon delivery system over California. Yeah. So UAP is an important issue, and also destigmatizing it.
And I agree. And I think it's a serious issue that can't be ignored at this point anymore like it was in the past. My question to you would be, what would you hope our next president would say about UAPs or UFOs?
I would hope that the next president would tell us which country is infiltrating American airspace and what they're doing about it. Of course, the Chinese spy balloon was a perfect example of human-made origins for these kind of objects. Of course, a balloon was shot down in the 1940s because the mainstream media was working with the Office of Censorship in the federal government to cover up the balloon bombs that were coming from Japan during World War II, which caused the only deaths on the American continent during the World War. So it's things like that, I think, that the president really needs to step up and let us know if it's our own technology, which I don't agree with because we'd just be running a propaganda operation on ourselves. But I really think that it's some type of foreign entity that's been infiltrating our airspace with advanced technology. I mean, hey, even I run a drone photography business on the side, and I'm using Chinese-made drones, which I could never get away with using American-made technology.
Look, it's 2024. I think questions about AI and UAPs and UFOs are significant, and there's a strong likelihood that those questions will need to be asked. If it's not asked at this debate, it's going to be asked in the near.
Okay, so I don't know how you feel about his remarks there. So he's a UFO researcher. He's been in this for a long time. He has he's always sky watching. He has a lot of videos out there. For him to say that he thinks that they're like delivery systems or adversarial craft, that is just bananas. That someone who, and that's another point that I try to make when I say people within ufology like cannibalizing itself. And I think that's what he did. We took a couple steps forward with these stories we just covered. And then you bring this guy on News Nation, and he says he has studied this stuff and he believes that they're adversarial craft, which actually takes us back a couple steps. I don't get it. What do you think about that, Reverend?
I think that this is healthy, that we hear another side. I'm glad News Nation has done that. And, there's always going to be that argument. There is some truth to a craft could land on someone's lawn, and it's a cognitive dissonance. I get it. And I think we're going to hear those arguments, and that's okay to have that debate. It's good to have News Nation saying, okay, let's give you the other side to this. Also, election year this is an election year. Whoever comes out and says, whether it's RFK or Biden or Trump, you get some points for that. If you say, when I get in, I'm going to, like Clinton did, and back when he was Obama, I'm going to look into this. you may get some points for that. So, you keep it in perspective. The thing is that we know that Congress, the whistleblowers are out there. This is kind of a side thing. Everybody's not going to agree with us, and that's okay. But we do know that it's being taken seriously. Chuck Schumer is trying to get I don't know what to call it, a panel or just some folks out there some experts, if you will, to kind of take the next step in this. It's being taken seriously. So this brother, he's entitled to his opinion. However, we know that our government is taking this very, very seriously. And it's about time, as are other governments around the world. So I don't think it's a big, we're taking 3 steps up and 5 steps back. You're always going to have listen, there are people in high levels of government who don't want disclosure because they think these beings are demons. So you got a theological viewpoint there too. And then you got some other folks who say we need to come clean with this. So it's this push, pull. But that's kind of noise. That's all noise. Just keep your eye on the prize as we go forward here. That as I said, we are being prepared. We've been being prepared for really quite some time, but especially now. Netflix is looking for new shows. People are doing documentaries. Look what we're talking about now. A few years ago, people would be snickering at this.
Right.
So I say just keep your eye on the prize. Everybody's not going to agree, but it's okay. It's okay. Because those of us who've been doing this have been vindicated.
Oh man, it's just so confusing. It can get so confusing, and it seems like it's just that we know that disinformation campaign is active and in full force, and it's just you can't help but mistake it when it peeks its head out like that every so often. It just seems like they know that we are right there, and they are like trying everything that they can. They're pulling everything out to try to go ahead and take us back a few steps. But obviously we bring disclosure, so I don't think that it's something that's going to be successful. But it's just it's like they look at us like enemies essentially, because they're pulling out all the stops and they don't care if we see it or not. So
yeah, but look at it like this, brother. And I'm not trying to make excuses, but okay, no president, none, is going to risk career suicide and come out and say, hey, folks, we're not alone. Not only are we not alone, but we've been lying to you for 70 plus years. We've signed treaties, which is treason. We've broken all the laws of the Constitution. We've even had to murder some people who've known too much.
Right.
Okay, we can't protect our airspace. Probably our religions have been started by these beings. So now we got to get into a question about God. Okay, and if these beings can get here, what is that going to do? Do we still need to use coal and gasoline when these people can get here? I mean, who's going to come out and say that? That's just not realistic.
Right.
It's not realistic. So if they do it like this, because this is a soft disclosure, not this particularly, but, there are people who have been to Hayam Mashad, Ed Mitchell, what's his name? Gary Nolan. We can go on and on. He died. He was with Canada. He was the security. Anyway, he came out and talked about this.
Was it
That's
Hellier?
disclosure. Yes, Hellier. Paul
Yeah.
Hellier. Thank you. The brother who's Putin's close friend, Dmitry Medvedev, on a hot mic. He said, hey, man, we get every Russian president gets a dossier of all the ET civilizations we're in contact with. I mean, no one locked him up. No one said, "Hey, man, pay no attention to him." It was out there. It was out there. And so these people, Chaim Mashed, what did he say in December 28th? You know, there's a galactic federation that the United States and Israel and other countries have been in contact with for 7 decades. That there's a base on Mars. There's a base on the moon. This is, you know, he was the brigadier general of Israel's space program for 28 years. He said this. Look it up, December of 2020. That's disclosure. Right. I'm surprised people don't. Look what the Vatican said in 2009. Pope Benedict, one of the most conservative popes of my generation, and I'm not even Catholic, he comes out and said, you shouldn't be surprised that there are ETs in the Bible. He said this. This is a pope. He also said that same year that Yahweh is not the name of the Christian God. Pope Francis jokes about, will we baptize? I mean, this is called disclosure. It's not the way you want it or you think someone's just going to come out on the lawn and tell you that. But why are these people aren't lying? Right. They're telling you that we're not alone. So yes, is it confusing? It's only, I read something the other day, Brother Rob, I forgot who the person was, but they said in the UFO community, nebulous term, I don't know, you know, but those are my words. He says that we don't suffer from a lack of information. We suffer from too much information. We got disinformation. We've got information. We've got people who they read something one time and they think it's true. But if you just focus on what you do know, this stuff is just noise in the background. Right. Because with all disinformation, there's a little bit of truth to put in there to hook you. Facts. That's what disinformation does. So keep your eye on the prize. I don't need the government to tell me that we're not alone. I don't, because I know I'm an experiencer. However, I see, you know, what goes on around me and, you know, it's going on, but you don't need them to tell you that. You know what you know. Right. You know, you don't want to wait for the same people who've been lying to you for 70 years to all of a sudden give you all this truth. Right. No, you're absolutely correct on that. And yes, Philip Blair, Paul Hellyer was awesome. Agreed. 99% of us believe we're being lied to. Yeah, they're on it. They're on it over here. So what we're going to do, because we definitely want to get into what we're doing for the show today. So let me go ahead and get us out of the news here. And right, so yes, the reason why we're here today, you know, this is a national holiday. I don't know how many people out there are aware that Juneteenth is a national holiday, but do you know what Juneteenth means? Like, what does it mean to you? You know, is it just a day off work? Do you really understand, you know, what's behind Juneteenth? Why it is? We're going to kind of get into that. I'm going to read a couple things here before we give a little bit of input, and then we'll kind of move on with the show. So this is courtesy of the, and it's abbreviated, so I can't really say. It's the African American, let me see here, historical NMAHC, which I don't know what it stands for right now, but I'm going to read this to you. This is the historical legacy of Juneteenth. And let me get into some of the imagery that we have here as well.
So this paints a picture. This really kind of also hits an emotional nerve within me. Just looking back on this, just seeing this right here, and seeing who were my predecessors, who came before me, and why I'm able to sit here and do this show as I'm doing today. So let me go ahead and get into this. On Freedom's Eve, or the eve of January 1st, 1863, the first watch night services took place. On that night, enslaved and free African Americans gathered in churches and private homes all across the country, awaiting news that the Emancipation Proclamation had taken effect. At the stroke of midnight, prayers were answered as all enslaved people in Confederate states were declared legally free. Union soldiers, many of whom were black, marched on the plantations and across cities in the South, reading small copies of the Emancipation Proclamation, spreading the news of freedom in Confederate states. Only through the 13th Amendment did emancipation end slavery throughout the United States, but not everyone in Confederate territory would immediately be free. Even though the Emancipation Proclamation was made effective in 1863, it could not be implemented in all places, still under Confederate control. As a result, in the westernmost Confederate state of Texas, enslaved people would not be free until much later. Freedom finally came on June 19th, 1865, when some 2,000 Union troops arrived in Galveston Bay, Texas. The Army announced that more than 250,000 enslaved Black people in the state were free by executive decree. This day came to be known as Juneteenth by the newly freed people in Texas. The post-emancipation period, known as Reconstruction, which went from 1865 to 1877, marked an era of great hope, uncertainty, and struggle for the nation as a whole. Formerly enslaved people immediately sought to reunify families, establish schools, run for political office, push radical legislation, and even sue slaveholders for compensation. Given the 200 plus years of enslavement, such changes were nothing short of amazing. Not even a generation out of slavery, African Americans were inspired and empowered to transform their lives and their country. Juneteenth marks our country's second Independence Day. Although it is long celebrated in the African American community, this monumental event remains largely unknown to most Americans. The historical legacy of Juneteenth shows the value of never giving up hope in uncertain times, and it's the National Museum of African American History and Culture is a community space where the spirit of hope lives on, a place where historical events like Juneteenth are shared and new stories are equally told. How does that hit for you, Reverend?
Well, like you, I realize that I stand on the shoulders of a lot of people to be where I am today, and ancestors, enslaved ancestors, native ancestors. And so I tried to remember that in my day to day, connections and engaging with people. Juneteenth is a tough one for me, though. And I'll tell you why. I'm thinking of Germany. And, Germany, we don't have to go into, we know that Germany during World War II in Weimar Germany, genocide, this whole bigotry and racism against the Jews we see where when you go to the extremes where that can lead to. But I have friends who are German. I've done a lot of research on this. I even got a letter back. It wasn't a form letter from Angela Merkel, because I had written a sermon on what we can learn from Germany here. And, in Germany, you could walk down the street, you could be in Berlin or Stuttgart or what have you. And from what I understand, they will have, this is where Kristallnacht happened, that night when we burned and looted Jewish homes and stores. This is where Jewish people were beaten or killed, because they're trying to say, we learned from this mistake. What we did was heinous, and we can never let that happen again. When you say a lot of people don't know why they're having this holiday, we need to do that here. We need to say, we let these people be enslaved 2 more years later. Now, I've heard some people say, well, when Robert E. Lee surrendered, they didn't get the news out there fast enough because it was in May, and maybe. But we I think, need to say, we cannot ever let this happen again. Because nothing heals until you call it what it is. I went to the gym today. I go to the gym about 5:30 in the morning to swim. And I went to the YMCA, and they were closed. Now, I didn't see, I was surprised, pleasantly so, and they were closed for Juneteenth. But in America, it seems that it's predominantly people of color who get this, what really happened. But some people just think, I got a day off. Right. Now we can have a picnic, or we can do what we want. When I think our government can do a better job of saying, this was wrong. This was wrong. We knew that these people were free. Texas knew that they were free and still said, we're not going to comply. That's how healing takes place, being accountable, being responsible. So it's hard for me. Yes, I get it's freedom. I get it, and hope and all those things. And I'm not trying to downplay that. But I'm saying that, as Gandhi said, there's no shame in having been enslaved. The shame comes from being a slave owner. And many of my friends in the dominant culture, they don't even know that this happened, or even why. It's just another day off. Or let's go have a picnic, or come on, let's go. When our government, again, needs to say, it was, this whole thing was our original sin, if you want to use those words. And then even when we were trying to clean it up, we still had people who resisted, did not adhere to the letter of the law. And we just can't have that anymore. That's what I would like to. If Germany could do it for 6 million people, certainly we could do it for probably 8, 9 times that much if you talk about the Middle Passage and what happened here. So Juneteenth is a difficult one for me. I'm glad we have it, but I don't think we realize the full power of what this meant, not only for those freed enslaved people, but for what it does to the country, what it did to the country.
Yeah, that's
and what it continues to do to the country.
And that's great to hear, because, like I was saying earlier, it's an American holiday at this point. It's the second independence. So in about 2 weeks here, we're going to barbecue, and we're going to fly fireworks. We're going to fly the flag proud. We're going to listen to the Star Spangled Banner. We're going to do all these things for independence of the United States from the British rule, which we should do, obviously, because that's a moment in our history, in American history. But this now has been solidified as also the second independence and has been solidified as an American holiday. And I feel like it should be more recognized. The flag should be flown. There should be celebration behind nationally behind what it is and have people be proud, not just being African American, obviously African Americans, but for everyone within the country to be proud of this day and to fly the flag and have that American pride for a moment in American history that changed things hopefully for the better and forever. Because I think even though we may not be fully where we want to be, I think that things definitely are trending in the right direction when you look at the populace of the country. And I'd say at least 80%, I think, are open-minded and would be open to going along and celebrating this holiday the way that it should be celebrated. And, I just, if it wasn't for it being made an official holiday a couple years ago where you get time off, you know, it's been there since 1865, and it's just taking notice now, and it just amazes me. But like my viewers here, all races, open-minded, willing to learn about what Juneteenth means to the African American community and then what it should mean to America. And I'm just hoping that, shining a light on moments like this helps bring us together as a country going forward. Because even with that, I looked at a couple things, and if you put it in perspective, America was founded in 1776. That's when the Declaration of Independence was signed. Think about that. That was only 248 years ago. That is nothing in the grand scheme of things. 1865, which 159 years ago, and just 2 years ago, we're recognizing it as a holiday. Then going a step further than that, if we go back as far as if we want to tie UFOs into it, 1947 is the earliest that we know of the government cover up. That's been 77 years. That's almost a third of the time that the country has been, the existence of the country. So, when I look at that, I look at steps that are being taken, the founding, the emancipation in 1865, which we know officially it was that, but we know it still carried over into the 1900s for sure. And then, being able to finally have the holiday cemented as and recognized as an American holiday, which I think was the biggest step. So I just really, the reason why I wanted to do this is because I feel like I have a duty to do this, first of all, for my predecessors, for those who stepped before me, who opened the doors for me to be able to have a platform, to be able to be free enough to have a platform and be able to get the ears of not just African Americans, but those of all races, and be able to, push an agenda that, as you know, on this channel is all about humanity and bringing that together. So healing wounds, helping America recognize it and count us all in as all Americans, and then taking the next step that we're already on, which is trying to, get humanity on the same page so we could take that next step in what it is that we're doing here. So that's just my little spiel on it. I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
Well, I'll say this. Morgan Freeman and all people before that have said African American history is American history. I can't, Dr. King said you can't legislate love, so you can't force people to be on the same page. I have seen great strides in the country around issues of race. And sometimes it feels like you take 3 steps up and 5 steps back. And so we've come a long way, and we have a long way to go. But I will just say that any type of healing, spiritual healing, physical healing, emotional healing, you have to look at life the way it is and not the way you want it to be. And until we come to grips nationally that we have done things that were not things to be proud of, until we can get there, then we will probably have this conversation next Juneteenth. And so you keep on pushing, you keep on keeping on, you keep your heart open. You do what you have to do to navigate. As I said, and I'll just let it go, that until America can do something like what Germany did in regards to saying, boy, that we lose sight on this one, we'll continue to say, most people don't even know why we have a holiday. Most people, it reminded me of the Dr. King holiday. It took a while because you had President Reagan and other people who were against it. And even then it got watered down because King was much more radical. He was more than just I have a dream speech. This man was a public intellectual. He had his PhD in systematic theology at 23. And he wanted to be an academic, but I'm rambling. I will just say that we have a lot to reflect on and a lot to be thankful for. I'm glad you did the show. I'm glad you asked me to do the show. And so I thank you for that. I thank your listeners for taking the time out. And hopefully you and I can get together and do another show on UFOs or whatever we're going to be doing.
Yeah. No, there's definitely more to do here. I had reached out to Charlie and told him that I wanted to set up a show, because I know a lot of this stuff means a lot to him, and I want to really be able to put that on a stage that would allow for the conversation and just to kind of
right and not have those time constraints.
It's like Black excellence in the whole thing. I mean, and we're doing things behind the scenes as far as, without giving up too much information, but trying to, pull things together on a level that, hopefully helps the whole thing, the whole mission for humanity. I mean, that's, like I said, that's what I'm in it for. I really appreciate you coming in, Reverend, and giving your opinion on this and just sharing this moment with me, really, because, this is something that I wanted to cover last year, but I didn't have the base or opportunity really to do it. And I really wanted to make sure that we shine the light because, you know what? In 2 weeks, I'm going to be popping fireworks and having barbecue and flying the flag for Independence Day. And if I'm going to do that, then I need to fly the flag for this day as well. And I just want all of our fellow Americans and just human beings out there to kind of have that same, outlook and perspective and to share this holiday as well. It's an American holiday.
Yeah.
So, I appreciate you, Reverend. Did you have anything you want to leave the audience with?
Just to keep the faith. Don't let people, just be the best you can be. That's all you can do, but that's all that's required. We're in this together. What did Ben Franklin say, right before, the British, before we became a nation? He said, we must all hang together. He said, how did he put it? We must all hang together because if we don't, we'll all hang separately.
Right. Say,
I always remember that.
you
So
know,
listen, just have a good show tonight. I would stay later. I got to be at church tomorrow morning early.
yes, sir.
Um, let's talk soon.
We will definitely do that, Reverend. I do appreciate you coming on in. And I do have an Ask the Chat.
Ask the chat.
And chat, you
Oh.
can do this at a later time. You can go put this in the comment section, but
Does
just
someone have a question?
no, this is the question
Okay.
I asked to the chat.
Okay,
So the
I'm
chat,
I'm out.
okay, Reverend, take care. Chat, what do you know about Juneteenth that you had not previously known? You don't have to answer that now. You can answer that in the chat. This comes up this every year. We'll touch on this. We do the tough conversations here, period, regardless on what they are. This time it happens to be Juneteenth. Who knows what it'll be next time? But the show is not over, so don't go anywhere, because this we actually are moving from out of this topic, and we are going to go into a topic or a segment that we actually call Once Upon a Time in Ufology. So let me go ahead and get that going here. Once Upon a Time in Ufology is where we take time to go ahead and look back at something historical within the UFO community. And one of the things that we wanted to cover was the Betty and Barney Hill case. So let me go. If you're, and essentially, this is for new people who are just coming into ufology, don't happen to know, everything that there is to know, right? So we touch on historical cases in order to kind of bring those people up to speed. If you're a normal or a regular within ufology, you know this story. But this is for the new ones, the new people just coming over, just dipping their toe into what this thing might be. So Once Upon a Time in Ufology, Betty and Barney Hill. And the story goes, Betty and Barney Hill, while driving back to Portsmouth from a vacation in Canada, the Hills observed a bright light in the sky, initially thinking it was a star or an aircraft. They soon noticed it behaving unusually following their car. Barney stopped the car to get a better look with binoculars and claimed to see humanoid figures peering out of the craft's windows. Frightened, he rushed back to the car and drove away at high speed. They experienced lost time. The couple experienced a period of lost time. They arrived home 2 hours later than expected and could not account for the time. Both Betty and Barney experienced strange sensations and impulses, such as feeling compelled to examine their bodies for any unusual marks. In dreams and hypnosis, Betty began having vivid dreams about the encounter, describing being taken aboard the spacecraft and examined by extraterrestrials. The couple sought the help of Dr. Benjamin Simon, the psychiatrist and neurologist, who conducted hypnosis sessions with both of them. Under hypnosis, both Betty and Barney recounted similar experiences of being taken aboard the craft and subjected to medical examinations. Some of the physical evidence showed the Hills' car had shiny concentric circles on its trunk that caused a compass to spin wildly when brought close. Betty's dress was torn in several places and had a mysterious pink powder on it. Both Betty and Barney experienced psychological and physiological effects such as anxiety and strange physical symptoms in the aftermath of the incident. So that is the Betty and Barney Hill case on Once Upon a Time in Ufology. It's like I said, this is for those who are just stepping their toe into ufology, peeking around, trying to see what's going on, and this is kind of a way to bring them in and educate them on some of the most important cases that kind of shape ufology and abduction cases, as far as that goes. And regression therapy too, right? Because if we recall the regression tapes, which are freaky creepy, and if you have not seen those, you definitely want to go online and check those out. The Betty and Barney Hill regression tapes, mind blowing. So with that being said, we have one last actual category here, which is the science fiction to science fact movie edition. And what we do is we pick a movie, and this movie is going to be none other than Nope. Awesome movie. Some people don't like it. I think it's an awesome movie. And let me give you the synopsis of the movie without spoilers in case you have not seen this movie. And I'll kind of let you know why we do this as well, right? So, Nope. Nope, directed by Jordan Peele, is a science fiction horror film that blends elements of suspense and supernatural mystery. The movie revolves around a brother and sister, played by Daniel Kaluuya and Kiki Palmer, who run a horse ranch in California. After a series of strange occurrences and sightings, they suspect an otherworldly presence in the skies above their ranch. As they attempt to document and uncover the truth behind these eerie phenomena, they encounter increasingly bizarre and terrifying events. This film explores themes of exploitation, spectacle, and the human desire to understand the unknown, delivering thrills, chills, and it's just an awesome film. So that's Nope is the science fiction, science fact movie for tonight. And I think it was a good one. I would say go watch it. I've watched it like 15 times. And I just really thought that the whole aspect of making the craft a living thing, I thought that was next level. And it was something that I didn't expect. And when I say this every time, I was in the theater, and when the credits rolled, I sat there for a minute. I didn't feel excited. I didn't feel satisfied or fulfilled. I just sat there kind of not knowing what to do next. And then about 5 minutes later, when I go ahead and get up and I start walking to the car, then it hits me. It's like, that was different. Like, okay, living craft. Then I go back to my own sighting and how these physical objects seem to be lifelike, seem to be alive, right? Like biological entities. And so it got me thinking, is there something to that? Does Jordan Peele know something that we don't know about these craft? I think it was Michael Herrera or one of the guys in the Disclosure Project 2.0 who talked about the craft that landed in the middle of the road in Mojave, and he rubbed his hand on it and it felt like shark skin or a cat's tongue. So that sort of thing. And it kind of just has me thinking, is there something to the aspect of maybe these things are alive? I don't know. It's bananas to even think of. I know. But science fiction, the science fact, the reason why we do this is because post 2017, we came to the realization that these things were real. They're in the sky. They're here. Right. So when you go and you watch these movies, obviously this came out post 2017. So you were already under the perspective of watching this, knowing that the phenomenon is real. But for those who are just coming into ufology and maybe have come from the skeptical side and now are kind of looking at this like, whoa, go ahead and watch Nope. You tell me what you think. We do this every single show on the Social Dig. We bring a movie every single time. I would say go watch it, and then by the time we do the next show, maybe we can talk about it, right? So with that being said, that is the science fiction, science fact movie for tonight's show, tonight's special. And what we're going to do is go ahead and get out of this here, and then we're going to go ahead and get ready to take it home. So I definitely just want to thank everybody who came by, right? I mean, having an open mind on such a serious topic, but it's not the first time we've done this. If you go back in the archive, we talked about so many different things that you would consider a tough conversation. But what I want to do here is I want to make something like this. Juneteenth is something that should be looked at as a normal thing, not a tough conversation. It should be just like talking about Independence Day, right? As easy as we do that, and as happy and giddily as we get together to prepare for a holiday like Independence Day, is and it's normal, right? I want to normalize this holiday. It's an American holiday. Can we celebrate it as Americans, regardless what race you are, what background you're from, what walk of life you're from? Can we recognize moments in American history and celebrate being American and being all inclusive as Americans? That's the goal here at the Social Dig, because you know why we do this. And I don't have to really tell you why, but I'll tell you. We do this for the positive progression of humanity. That's everybody out there. You are all represented in that sea of people. Now, this is Black, this is white, this is Latino, this is Asian, this is Hindi, this is any race or anything you could think of within this world is represented in this sea of people. This is why we do it, for the unity of everybody, moving the needle with conversations that we have. And I think we did that tonight. And I just want to thank everybody for being open-minded enough to come in and be a part of this. So let me go ahead and go back. Maggie M10, always, thank you so much for coming on in. Philip Blair, thank you for coming in. Puck Elf, thank you. Simon Likeable, thank you. Botanical Brother, appreciate you. President Zaddy, thank you for coming. I will check that out for you. Let me see what I can find out. Thanks for coming. Laura Lee Seaton, thanks for coming on in. Brown Door, always appreciate you. Lex Diaz, thanks for coming in. Woo Riders DG, Derek Galloway, thanks for coming on in. We appreciate you. Amy WC, thank you so much for coming in. Appreciate you. And I know I'm gonna miss people here, and I really don't want to, but I know how it goes. I just thank you all for coming. Thank you so much for coming to the Social Dig. You guys enjoy the rest of your day. You will see me at After Hours this weekend. Make sure you tune in. Otherwise, you guys have a great rest of your day. You guys take care. Enjoy.